My name's Daryl. I used to work the graveyard shift at a hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. During peak season, it was a fun job. Families, tourists, people coming and going. But in the off-season, it was a different story. The place turned into something else. We offered cheap weekly rates to bring in retired snowbirds escaping the cold, but we also ended up attracting, well, let's just say, not the best kind of people. I'd seen my fair share of meth labs, fights, and even people squatting in empty rooms. But that night was something else entirely. I went to an indie wrestling show with my best friend Andrew. We had a blast. Even met Terry Funk, a wrestling legend. I was still buzzing from the excitement when I got to work, even though I was a little late, midnight instead of 11 p.m. When I got there, Andrew stopped by for a bit. He worked maintenance at our hotel and the other two properties our company owned. It was routine for him to come by, grab some food, and hang out for a bit. He was just about to leave when it happened. The door chime, the kind that rings when someone enters. Andrew was still standing near the desk, but before I could even react, I heard a loud voice. I turned around, just in time to see Andrew collapse. And then, I saw him. A man stepped forward, gripping a steel pipe in his hand. Before I could even process what was happening, he swung. The first hit staggered me. I dropped to one knee, then another blow to the head. Everything blurred. The room spun. Somewhere through the ringing in my ears, I heard another voice. Someone else was there. "He got away. He's getting a cop." Just like that, they ran. I stumbled to my feet, head pounding, vision swimming. I tried to call the police from the office phone. Nothing. The damn thing wasn't working. Blood was dripping down my face, and pure panic took over. What if they came back? I ran to the doors and locked them. Then I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911. When the cops arrived, I finally pieced together what happened. Turns out, Andrew had jumped over the desk and escaped just in time to flag down a patrol car. If he had hesitated even a second longer, who knows what would have happened. Next day, they pulled the security footage. I thought I had only been hit twice, but I was wrong. He hit me 10 times, and I just kept trying to get up. I don't remember any of it. My body had been on autopilot, fighting to stay conscious. The cops said it was likely a failed robbery, but I'll never know for sure. And the worst part, they never caught them. They moved me to a different hotel after that, just in case they were after me specifically. But the damage was done. Every time I worked night shift after that, every time I heard the door chime, my body tensed. I had 3 kids to support, so I couldn't afford to quit. But the truth is, I never felt safe again, and I never will. I was already having a bad night. My flight had a malfunction, nothing serious, but enough to keep us stranded on the tarmac for hours. We never deplaned, just sat there, waiting. By the time I finally landed, I was exhausted. The hotel was already booked and paid for. All I wanted was to check in, sleep for a few hours, and get through my business meetings in the morning. But when I got to the front desk, the guy behind the counter looked nervous. "Sir, I'm really sorry, but we gave your room away." I just stood there, trying to process what he said. Are you kidding me? We had a full house tonight. We had to start reallocating rooms when guests didn't show. I wasn't leaving. The event I was attending was in their hotel. I wasn't about to Uber somewhere else at 2 a.m., so I pushed back, firmly but politely. "Look, I already paid for this. I don't care what you have to do. Just find me a room." The guy hesitated. Then, after some frantic keyboard clicking, he sighed. "There's one option. That should have been my first warning. Would you be okay with a room under renovation?" That's what he asked me. I just shrugged. "As long as the sheets are clean so I can sleep, I don't care." That was a mistake. He handed me a keycard and gave me some vague apology. I barely heard it. I just wanted to sleep. I made my way down the hall. As I reached the last room on the floor, something felt off. The door looked older than the others, like it had been replaced recently. No room number on it. I swiped my card, stepped inside, and immediately knew something was wrong. The first thing that hit me was the smell, like bleach, mixed with something metallic. I flipped the lights on. The room was strange. The bed and TV were brand new, almost like they had just been unwrapped. But the walls were covered in primed-over patches, unevenly painted. Then I saw the floor. A large sheet of plastic was taped down over a section of the carpet, and underneath it, a massive stain. I swallowed hard. I knew what it was. Blood. I had seen crime scene photos before. This wasn't spilled wine or coffee. And the worst part, the way the splatter was shaped. You could see where it started, where whoever it was had been hit, where they had fallen, and where they had tried to crawl. I took a step back. I was wide awake now. That's when I noticed something else. The walls. Small holes, a lot of them. Some had been filled in, sanded over, and painted, but not well. I stood there, staring, and suddenly the room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in on me. I should have left, but where would I go? It was the middle of the night, and I had a presentation in a few hours, so I told myself, it's fine, it's just an old crime scene, the case is closed, no one's coming back. I turned off the lights and lay down. It took me forever to fall asleep. The silence in that room felt wrong, and then, at some point in the night, I woke up, because I heard something. A creak, like the sound of a footstep on an old wooden floor. Except, the floor in my room was carpet. I held my breath, listening. Then, a whisper, faint, muffled, like someone trying to speak through a gag. Help! My blood ran cold. I turned my head toward the bathroom door. It was open wider than before, and inside the darkness I saw movement. Something low to the ground, crawling. My stomach twisted, I couldn't move. Then I noticed something worse. The patched up bullet holes in the wall, something was watching me through them. A single bloodshot eye, unblinking, staring straight at me. I bolted upright. The bed creaked loudly beneath me, and then the whispering stopped. Everything went still. But the eye, it was still there, still watching. I lunged for the bedside lamp and turned it on. The bathroom was empty. The patched up holes were just holes again. No eye, no whispering. But then a sound. Not inside my room. From the other side of the wall, a loud thumping knock and a voice. Please help me. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. As soon as the sun was up, I grabbed my stuff and got the hell out of that room. When I got to the front desk, the guy from the night before was gone. A woman was working the morning shift. I handed her my key. How was your stay? She asked. I hesitated. Then I decided to ask. That room, has anyone else stayed there recently? Her smile faltered. Sir, that room shouldn't have been rented out. My stomach dropped. Why not? She glanced over her shoulder, like she didn't want anyone to hear. Then in a lower voice she said, because someone died in there. I don't know what happened in that room, but I know what I felt. And sometimes, I wonder if I was really alone that night. Because when I woke up, the plastic on the floor had shifted, like someone had been standing there, watching me sleep. I was traveling for work, just another trip, another hotel, another night alone in a strange city. The hotel was small but fancy, the kind of place with vintage furniture, golden chandeliers, and the smell of old wood and cleaning products. I checked in late. The receptionist barely looked up as she handed me my key. Room 909. I grabbed my bag and headed upstairs. I got to my room, locked the door, and threw my bag onto the chair. Everything seemed normal. Bed, desk, TV, and a massive mirror across from the bed. Something about the mirror bothered me. It felt too big, too old, like it didn't belong there. But I was exhausted, so I turned off the lights and got into bed, and at some point, I fell asleep. Sometime in the middle of the night I woke up. I don't know why. No sound, no nightmare, just something felt off. I sat up and rubbed my eyes, and then I saw it, the mirror. It wasn't reflecting the room correctly. Everything was there, the desk, the chair, the TV, but the bed, it was empty. I blinked, stared. I was right there, sitting up in bed, but in the mirror, I wasn't there. A chill ran down my spine. I reached for my phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight, and that's when I heard it, a creak, slow, deliberate. I turned toward the noise. The closet door was opening. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The darkness inside wasn't normal. It was deep. Almost like it wasn't a closet at all, but a hole in the room itself. And then, something moved inside. I grabbed my bag and bolted. I practically ran down the stairs to the front desk. The receptionist looked up, startled. I need a different room. Something's wrong with mine. She frowned. Which room? 909. Silence. She just stared at me. Then finally she spoke. Sir, we don't have a room 909. My body went cold. I turned the key over in my hand. No number, just a blank metal tag. I turned and looked back at the hallway where I had just come from. There were doors for 907, 908, but no 909, just an empty wall. I didn't ask any more questions. I didn't want the answers. I grabbed my stuff and left. I don't know where I spent the night. I barely remember getting to the airport, but I never looked back. And to this day, I don't check into hotels past midnight. We were just looking for a cheap place to stay. We were traveling on a budget, and this hotel had rooms at half the price of the others in town. The receptionist, an older guy with a tired look, barely glanced at us when he handed over our key. Rates are low because maintenance is being done on several floors, he mumbled. Didn't think much of it at the time. Just nodded, took our key, and headed up to our room. The hotel was strangely empty. There were a few other guests, but most of the rooms were dark. Some had caution tape across the doors. I figured they were just under construction. Our room? Basic but fine. Bed was stiff, bathroom had some rust stains, but nothing awful. We locked the door, watched some TV, and eventually went to sleep. I remember thinking how quiet the hotel was. At the time, I thought that was a good thing. The next morning, we went down for breakfast. That's when we met the German couple. They looked exhausted, dark circles under their eyes, half asleep over their coffee. You guys sleep okay? I asked. They exchanged a look. Not really, one of them muttered. Some staff member came banging on our door at like 2 a.m. telling us we had to move rooms. I frowned. Did they say why? They shook their heads. They just kept saying we weren't supposed to be there. Something about the way they said it unnerved me. After breakfast, we started talking to other guests. That's when we overheard two staff members whispering. One of them looked nervous. The other was shaking his head. Did you hear about the two in room 412? My stomach tightened. They didn't wake up. I froze. The German couple went pale. That was the floor they had been on. We found out the truth later that day. The maintenance the receptionist mentioned, it wasn't construction. It was fumigation. They were gassing entire floors for bedbugs, and someone had accidentally booked guests into the wrong rooms. During the night, hotel staff had been going floor to floor, sliding nozzles under the doors, releasing the gas. The Germans, they got lucky. Someone realized the mistake just in time and moved them. The two guests next door, they didn't. They were found the next morning, dead in their beds. We left that day, didn't ask for a refund, didn't say anything, just packed up and got the hell out. But the thing that sticks with me, how easy it would have been. One room, one mistake, and I wouldn't be telling this story right now. I was 15 years old when my family took a trip to Thailand. It was supposed to be an amazing vacation, just me, my mom, and my sister, staying in a fancy hotel right in the heart of Bangkok. The best part, the rooftop pool. It was massive with a perfect view of the city. But the weird thing was, it was always empty. No other guests, no lifeguard, just silence. One afternoon, while my mom and sister stayed in the room, I decided to go for a swim alone. I did about 10 laps before I noticed him. At first, I didn't think much of him. He looked out of place. A thick jacket despite the sweltering heat, a low baseball cap that kept his face hidden, and he was watching me. Not in the casual way someone glances around. He didn't look away. Then he started talking. His voice was calm, friendly, too friendly. How are you enjoying Thailand? I answered politely, even though something felt off. What's your favorite food? He asked next. Then, his questions changed. How many people are in your room? I hesitated. How many men? My stomach twisted. I lied. I said we were traveling in a big group with lots of men. His expression didn't change, but I saw his fingers tighten into a fist. I climbed out of the pool, threw my towel over my shoulders, and walked fast. I heard his footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't want him to see my fear. I reached the elevator, my heart hammering. I pressed the button frantically as he got closer. The doors started closing, and just before they shut, he smiled. That dead, knowing smile. I felt relief flood my chest as the elevator went down, but when the doors slid open, my breath caught in my throat. He was standing right outside my room. I couldn't move. It didn't make sense. He had no time to take the stairs, no way to beat the elevator down. Yet there he was, waiting. He took a step forward. "How many men are with you?" he repeated. His voice was different now, low, demanding. I forced myself to stand tall. "A lot," I lied. "They're probably wondering where I am." His lip twitched. He didn't believe me. I edged toward my door. His footsteps matched mine. The second I reached the door, I yanked it open, slammed it shut, and locked all 3 locks. I told my mom and sister everything. They laughed. "He was probably just being friendly," my mom said. I sat on the bed, frustrated. And that's when I smelled it. A thick, acrid scent filling the air. Smoke. I looked up. Dark clouds were pouring out of the air vents. It wasn't fire smoke, it was chemical. A chill ran through me. Had he started a fire? Or was he trying to force us out? I grabbed my mom's arm. "We have to leave, now!" She saw the panic in my face. This time, she didn't argue. We grabbed our things and bolted. But when we opened the door, he was gone. I didn't trust the elevator. My sister whispered, "Let's take the stairs." We ran, 20 flights, no sign of him. But my stomach wouldn't stop twisting. Was he waiting below? We made it to the lobby. I told them everything. The man, the smoke, the questions. The receptionist barely reacted. "We'll send security," she said, completely indifferent. My mom and sister wanted to stay. I refused. I didn't care where we went. We weren't sleeping here. We found another hotel across the city. I barely slept. And the next day, we went back to grab our remaining bags. As we pulled up, I looked up at the rooftop pool, and there he was, standing at the edge of the glass railing, watching, smiling. I never set foot in that hotel again.